Hi, welcome to a new episode of Life on the Research Trail. I'm Ron Coddington, the editor and publisher of Military Images magazine, bringing you another story from my various adventures. This morning took me to Hampton Roads, Virginia, the Newport News area, in March of 1862. I was researching a soldier who served in the 20th Indiana Infantry. His name is William Charles Henry Reeder. He's a corporal in Company A, and he and his regiment happens to be in the Newport News area awaiting assignment to the Army of the Potomac when the historic naval engagements unfolded. That included the Battle of the Monitor and the Virginia. For those of you who know the Civil War, you know the historic nature of that engagement, the first Battle of the Ironclads. And so I was quite interested to read Corporal Reeder's take on the battle. He's a cabinet maker by trade. And so his view, his description of the Monitor came through that lens, and he described it as a long board with a hogshead sitting on it. He also described the battle, and my favorite part of his description is he describes it as a little feist, which is his name for a dog. The name feist is sort of an antiquated, smaller dog. But the gist of his comment was a little dog nipping at a big dog with that little turret spinning around and around, peppering the larger Virginia with fire from the cannons. So that was my experience this morning. Just yesterday, I was visiting a friend of mine. His name is Bill Johnson. Bill is 84 years young, and he's the author of what is pretty much the Bible on air conditioning. Bill is the kind of guy he knows how to work with equipment. He knows how to work with air conditioning. He came up in the 1950s, and so has a deep and thorough understanding of refrigeration. And so I was over at Bill's house, and we're looking around at some of his various pieces of furniture, and he was giving me descriptions. And in one room, he had two antique refrigerators. Both of them were still working, and both of them had required very little restoration on his part. And he was talking about how the equipment made in the 1930s and 1940s still stands the test of time. And he pointed to a refrigerator that looks just like the one that I'm showing you here. And he said, here's an example of one. And he gestured towards the top of the refrigerator, knowing my interest in the Civil War. He said to me, do you know what we call that? And I didn't. And so I expressed my lack of knowledge. And he said, that's what we call the monitor top. And so I instantly knew the connection that he was making for my benefit to the Civil War. And I had no idea. So I spent some time online looking at refrigeration in the 1930s and 40s and how big a part these monitor tops were, because that's where the coil was housed to help in the cooling process. So it's really fascinating stuff. And it touched me because I love to find examples where terms from the Civil War period make it beyond the Civil War and wind up being part of the American vocabulary. In my description, I mentioned Burnside sideburns and deadline, and those have lasted into the current day. But the monitor top on a refrigeration is, I would call it antiquated at this point. But still, for folks like Bill and others who are knowledgeable about the history of refrigeration, it's still a thing. So really appreciate you hanging out this morning for this video. You can catch more of them on YouTube and Facebook. So happy trails. Take care. Bye.